While we are all awaiting future developments in the ongoing Richard Allen case, we decided that one way for us all to better understand what's going on and what may happen in the future would be to take a close look at the principals in the legal case. Defense attorneys Brad Rozzi and Andy Baldwin, prosecutor Nick McLeland, and Judge Fran Gull.
We covered Andy Baldwin a few weeks back. Now we're looking at defense attorney Brad Rozzi. In yesterday's episode, we focused on what he's like outside the courtroom. Today, we will concentrate more on him as a lawyer. Brad works in Cass County, Indiana. To be more specific, his office is located in Logansport, Indiana.
Let's start, as we did yesterday, by hearing from one of his peers. Here is Logansport attorney Andrew Ackey. Andrew is going to share an anecdote that illustrates why Brad is considered a great person to call if you need help.
Bradley's an outdoorsman. I can tell you that a couple years ago, when I got up and went to the Y about 5 o'clock, was on my way home about 6 a.m. It was pouring down rain, and I was headed home. I was about 3 or 4 blocks from the house. I hit a deer. It annihilated my vehicle. I got out of the vehicle, and the deer was, laying in front of my vehicle, kind of yelping or whatever a deer does. I'm not an outdoorsman. And I did not know what to do. So I called Brad and asked him if he could help me. This is at 6 a.m. And this is a work day. It's pouring down rain. So Brad hops in his truck, drives around the corner, and gets there. I hop out of my vehicle. He's in a suit, and it is, as soon as you step out of the vehicle, you're just drenched. And I said, man, I don't know what to do here. I hit this deer. What should we do? And I thought Brad was going to take out a gun and shoot the deer and put it out of its misery, but no, he did not do that. He pulled out probably, I don't remember exactly, I would say maybe like a 12-inch knife, and stabbed the deer in the throat, to let it pass quickly. Something I will never forget, but Brad is a very, very avid outdoorsman.
My name is Anya Kane. I'm a journalist.
And I'm Kevin Greenlee. I'm an attorney.
We first connected while looking into the Burger Chef murders, an Indiana cold case. Together, we built a spreadsheet documenting hundreds of cases of restaurant-related homicides. That original spreadsheet gave way to our podcast, The Murdersheet.
Now we maintain that same research-centric, investigative approach as we look into all sorts of homicides, including unsolved cases, historical crimes, and, of course, restaurant murders.
We don't just chat about the headlines. Our podcast is a platform for our journalism. The Murdersheet focuses on investigative reporting, thoughtful analysis, thorough research, and in-depth interviews. We're the Murdersheet.
And this is the Delphi murders. Brad Rozzi for the defense, Part 2. The Pit Bull comes out.
Former Deputy Prosecutor Randy Head recalls when he initially encountered Brad Rozzi.
I met Brad Rozzi when I was a deputy prosecutor in Logansport, Indiana, which is where Brad's private practice is, and got to know him through membership in the bar and working with him on a regular basis because we had a lot of cases together.
What's it like to practice law in Logansport?
Logansport criminal defense is pretty tough. You know, we have some prosecutors here who believe in the black letter of the law and who uphold the law, and that there's nothing wrong with that. You know, we're all different. You know, we obviously have a job to do. They have a job to do. They do a good job upholding the law, and you know, we do a good job of representing our clients, but it can be difficult practicing in Cass County.
What makes it difficult?
Many different things, but I would say it's a little more difficult in Cass because, you know, you have strong personalities on both sides who both do a really good job of advocating their respective positions. Not that other counties don't by any means, because we have some really, really good prosecutors. I mean, we have really good prosecutors that I personally work with, but sometimes, you know, it can be tense in Cass.
Some of the most important work prosecutors and defense attorneys do might take place outside of a courtroom. Randy recalls some of his encounters with Brad when they tried cases against each other.
When he was a public defender or just a private defense attorney and I was a deputy prosecutor, we would meet to talk about cases to see if we could negotiate plea agreements, if there was an agreement that could be reached. And even then, you know, you're always impressed with Brad's preparation. He knows his case very well. He knows your case as well as he knows his. And he's a fighter. He's not unreasonable, but when he feels like there's something worth fighting about, you're going to have a fight on your hands. It's not going to be an unfair fight, but he's going to know the law, the rules of evidence, and he's going to know the facts extremely well. And that makes him a formidable opponent.
Despite the challenges involved, it is important for prosecutors and defense attorneys in a county to work to maintain respectful relations.
When you work with a particular attorney and you have a high volume of cases together, it's important to develop a good relationship where you can respect and trust each other when you're just talking about things. And Brad always endeavors to do that. When he's talking about facts, when he's negotiating, he can prove everything that he says to you. You don't worry that he's representing something. And there are lawyers who will represent something to you, and you go dig into it, and you realize that that guy was trying to make an argument, but he's just wrong. It's just there's no proof to what he's saying, and you end up not trusting that attorney. But his word is good when he tells you what he can prove. Does that make sense?
It does.
Both attorneys have to go into the relationship realizing that that's important. Not that you capitulate, you don't give up because this person's friends or friendly with you. But when you're discussing facts or what the law says, if you misrepresent something, the other person's going to figure that out, and then there's nothing else you're going to be able to say that they will believe. You've shot your own credibility at that point. So Brad has always maintained a high level of credibility, but also outside of court, he's not up in your face talking about how he's going to beat you. I've seen lawyers do this too. They want to come in and puff out their chest and talk about how great they are or how bad you are or how great their case is. And that just causes resentment. Brad always comes at things as very down to earth, very easy to talk to. It says, if there is a solution here, let's see if we can find it. Here's the sticking points on our side. This is what we think, you could prove. This is what we think you're going to have trouble with. And when you go through that with somebody over and over, and then you go to court a few times, you realize that, what they're saying is accurate. That, you're not always accurate about whether you're going to win or lose, but you understand and respect someone who is prepared for those conversations, but also who deals with you in a friendly, respectful way.
Randy stressed with us how important he thinks a respectful tone can be.
When I'm preparing witnesses for trial, I always tell them the jury's going to judge you on two things. They're going to judge what you say and how you say it. So if you're accurate, but you come across as unlikable, the jury's going to be less likely to listen to you. I think that's the same way when attorneys are dealing with each other. What you say and how you say it. If you're overly aggressive, if you're disrespectful of somebody when you're dealing with them, that's going to cause an impression that colors the rest of that relationship. But Brad's always been good on both of those fronts. He's prepared, so what he says is going to be accurate, but he respects the person that he's talking to. He respects your role. He respects the work that you've done on the case. And so you're willing to further conversations. And I think he gets more done for his clients that way. People who are hyper aggressive outside of court, I think usually are insecure, not all the time. But a lot of times when someone is puffing themselves up or trying to go after you or your case every time you speak, they're insecure about it. But lawyers who tend to be more secure and know what they're capable of and know what they can do tend to be calmer and get along with each other better. And if you're dealing with someone that you get along with, you can get to the bottom line and discuss things and solve problems. And that should always be the aim, right? And that's what a lot of lawyers try to do. So if you can talk to someone and communicate and develop respect between both sides, you can get a lot more done. And especially if they work together repeatedly. If they're in the same community and work together on a high volume of cases, you're going to find them being very efficient at getting to the right result and getting to it quickly and keeping things moving. And then that makes room for other cases to go to trial. So that's also a good thing.
Of course, the aspect of an attorney's work that the public can most readily observe is what happens in court. We asked Randy what people should look for when they see Brad handle a trial.
I think what I would expect from him in any trial is that he's going to have a strategy going in that he carries through the trial. Some attorneys look for an opening in trial and try to exploit it. And if you give Brad an opening, he will exploit it. But 90%, I think, of what he does is going to be he's ready for this and knows how he's going to make his arguments and hit his points. And he'll tell the jury in opening statement, this is what I want you to look for. And he will hit those things consistently. And then in closing statement, talk about those things. And so, I mean, I think that's a big reason for his success is that he's so well prepared and he's consistent. He sticks to his theme. He sticks to his outline of what's going to be important. And in the end, those issues are important. And that's what the jury's going to talk about in the jury room. As opposed to, some people on cross-examination just go on fishing expeditions hoping to dig up something. And sometimes that works depending on what they find, but most of the time I think it doesn't. And it's obvious to the jury that the cross-examining attorney didn't know what he was looking for or what was going to happen when he began asking about everything under the sun. But Brad is very focused, and I think that serves him well. The jury realizes that he's focused, and they follow him. Does that make sense?
It does. It sounds like preparation is a big part of this process for him.
It is. It really is. And then I've never seen him prepare. I've just been the victim of it. When you're in trial against him, you realize when he starts asking questions, okay, this guy knows this case backwards, frontwards, sideways, from whatever angle. He knows everything that you could possibly know about it because he spent the time to get ready.
Here's Andrew's assessment.
I think he's good on his feet. He thinks quickly. I think, Brad has over 20 years of experience, with criminal defense and other matters. And so I think he's honed, our craft very well over the years. And so in the courtroom, he is very, very good at what he does. I mean, he's a good lawyer.
Andrew and Brad have, of course, often opposed each other in court. But Andrew did work for a time at the same law office as Brad.
I had a good time working with Brad at the firm. I had a good time working with everybody. We had Brad Dean in there. We had Jim Knight for a while, John Hillis. I had a really good time working with all of them. Brad's very down to earth and practical. He's genuine. He'll tell you what's on his mind. He's caring. He thinks a lot of his staff members. He likes to make sure that they're taken care of. He cares about his clients. He goes above and beyond for his clients. I work quite a bit. I see Brad's vehicle down here on the weekends working.
Sometimes the two of them have been on the same case. What's it like to work on a case with him?
Just like I described him earlier, you have to be prepared. You don't want to schedule a meeting with Bradley and not be prepared. You want to know the facts as well as, if not better than he does. Because when you're discussing cases, time is obviously valuable. It's limited. And so you don't really want to schedule a sit-down meeting to discuss the facts of a case and not be prepared because, number one, I guess, I just don't operate like that. But number two, he is going to be prepared and he may have questions. And so you want to use your time wisely and strategize the best you can. He's always very well prepared.
Working at the same place made it easier for Andrew and Brad to help each other out.
I mean, we were in the office together for a couple of years, several years, and we were able to bounce ideas off one another. Not saying the Delphi case by any means, but, even today, if one of us have an issue come up and we're, trying to be creative or, need a little bit of feedback, we may call one another and ask, hey, what do you think about this? And so I think Brad, over the years, even now, and I left in 2018, I think he's a good resource. I think he's definitely a good resource for me. And I would think that I'm a resource for him, although he has a lot more experience than I do. So he probably doesn't have to call me, as much as I call him.
When we talk about Brad in court, it is important to remember that he handles a wide variety of different cases. Here is Brian Martinez, who formerly worked in Brad's law office.
So he does criminal cases, he does DUIs, he's had murder cases, burglary cases. He also does some divorce work as well, and he does a little bit of civil, but I think mostly he focuses on criminal and divorces.
We wondered if it was unusual for an attorney to work extensively both in criminal law and family law.
I would say if you're a small town attorney, then you really are going to practice. If you don't really focus on one area, you're really primarily going to be practicing in the areas of criminal defense and family law. And so it's common. Yeah, it's common. And Brad does a good job at family law cases as well. He's always prepared. Everything that I said about Brad's style for criminal defense would equally apply to his style as an attorney for a family law case.
Broadly speaking, do they tend to take the same type of skills for a lawyer to do well at both family and criminal defense, or are there some differences as far as what a lawyer needs to be prepared for and doing?
I think generally speaking, they're the same, but family law is a little bit different. There's probably, this may sound strange, but there's a lot more emotion in family law cases than there is in criminal defense cases. When custody is on the line, that's a big deal, obviously, and sometimes, you have family law cases where you have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars on the line, that's going to be divided. And so emotion runs really, really high in family law cases. Criminal defense, not so much.
Many of us heard Brad Rozzi's name for the first time because of him becoming the defense attorney for Richard Allen. We asked Andrew if there were unique challenges or hardships when an attorney handled a high-profile case.
I guess this may sound kind of strange, but I would think Brad would look at cases kind of like I do, and I don't think it really matters if a case has the notoriety of the Delphi case or if it's someone charged with a B misdemeanor possession of marijuana charge that has no criminal history. To you and I on the outside, that may seem like a world of difference, but, I think what you have to do in criminal defense or family law is kind of desensitize yourself to that way of thinking and understand that a client, to them, even if they're only charged with, a B misdemeanor, to someone that has no criminal history, that's a big deal. And they feel a ton of pressure from that. And so I think Brad is very well aware of that. And so I guess I would say, I would think Brad would treat every client and every case as if it were a high-profile case, even if it doesn't appear that way, to someone on the outside. I think he treats everyone the same.
That makes sense. As you said, it's high profile to that person's life, either way, if they're looking at jail time or a major fine or a divorce even.
That puts a lot of pressure on people in his position or your position. How do you guys handle that?
I think each person has to handle it differently. I was going to say something funny, but
please do.
Yeah, no, I was going to say cocktails. No. I think each person handles the stress differently, and I think Brad has a really specifically Brad. I don't think I'm there yet, so I don't want to say we, because I think Brad has a really unique way of being able to put the work down when he goes home. And I think he can focus on other things. A lot of men in particular define themselves by their occupation. And I'm not sure, I've never really got that sense from Bradley. I don't think Bradley gets his self-worth from being a lawyer. I think there are other more important things to him in life, like his family. And I think he does a really good job of being able to put it down when he goes home and kind of, set that stress aside until the next day. And so I think that's the way that, if I had to guess, that's the way I think he would deal with the stress.
Part of being an attorney that we have not discussed yet in this episode is handling clients, especially in those moments when it may be awkward or uncomfortable to tell them something they need to hear.
He's very blunt and he's very straightforward. And I think when you have an attorney, this is a characteristic that you want. You don't want somebody to sugarcoat anything for you. And he doesn't. He really doesn't sugarcoat anything for you. The time that I worked with him, I remember this specific time where we had a Latino customer in his office, and we had a court hearing coming up that day. And the customer showed up in sandals and shorts, and I don't know if he brushed his teeth or not, and he had to go to court in like an hour and a half. And Brad was not afraid to tell him, like, you need to go home and brush your teeth and comb your hair and take a shower. And that's just how he is. And obviously he's doing this because, he doesn't want you to show up to court, not presentable. But yeah, he's not afraid to be blunt or straightforward. So that's one of his big things that, a lot of people really like about him.
I think Brad is far enough along in his practice that if, I think he can definitely identify with his clients. And, I think Brad is far enough along in his practice that, if he tells you that something is going to happen, whether it be criminal defense or family law, I think it's pretty close to what a judge is going to do. And so he may, read about a case or, analyze the facts of a case and then think, I think the judge would do this. I don't think Brad is afraid to tell his clients, good, bad, or indifferent, this is where I think this case is headed. This is how I think a judge will rule. And, this is my recommendation. I don't think I know he's not afraid to do that at this point in his career.
Here's Tony Willison.
He represented me in my divorce from my ex-wife, and he was phenomenal. At one point I said, when does the pit bull come out? And he kind of smiled and he says, you'll know. And I did know.
Tony also praised how clearly Brad communicated with him.
He's real direct and straightforward. You don't have to try to read between the lines after he's spoken to you, because he makes things very clear, I guess would be the best way to say that. And that's one of the things he let me know, is that he worked for me. He told me the law. He told me what you can and cannot do. But at the same time, he always brought it back to me to say, these are your choices. And I respect that, because you got to know both sides of it.
What else can you tell us about what it's like to have him represent you as an attorney?
Comforting. I mean, just knowing that for me, he kept me in check. I can get, we all have a temper at some point, and being in court with your ex-wife and hearing lies and wanting to jump up, he did a good job of keeping me in check and really having a feel for what was going on. I mean, like the underlying currents, I guess, is what I felt like in my case in particular. But I also felt like he was a student of the law. He knew the insides and outs. When things would come up, he was already prepared. So, he was just on top of his game. His professionalism in the courtroom, I was thrilled to death with him. Like I say, I've recommended him to a lot of people over the years, and everybody that I've recommended him to has been more than satisfied. They've been very happy with the services.
We had one final question for Randy. If a prosecutor came up to you and said, I'm going to be having a trial against Brad Rozzi, what should I know? What should I expect? What would you say?
I would say to spend a lot of time with your own witnesses so that you know exactly what they're going to say. Make sure you don't have a witness who's guessing at anything. And you figure out where the holes in your story are, or in that witness's testimony, and deal with it in opening statements, deal with it with the jury before Brad gets to, because if you give him the chance, he will be dealing with it. So you need to admit the weaknesses of your case up front so that the jury's not surprised by those when he brings it up, because rest assured he's going to. You're not going to get anything by him. Witness isn't going to be able to skate and assume something or guess at something and have that stand. It's going to be challenged.
We would like to thank Andrew Ackey, Randy Head, Brian Martinez, Steve Griffey, Tony Willison, and Vicki Krantz for sharing with us their memories and thoughts about Brad Rozzi.
Thanks so much for listening to The Murder Sheet. If you have a tip concerning one of the cases we cover, please email us at murdersheet@gmail.com. If you have actionable information about an unsolved crime, please report it to the appropriate authorities.
If you're interested in joining our Patreon, that's available at www.patreon.com/murdersheet. If you want to tip us a bit of money for records requests, you can do so at www.buymeacoffee.com/murdersheet. We very much appreciate any support.
Special thanks to Kevin Tyler Greenlee, who composed the music for The Murder Sheet, and who you can find on the web at kevintg.com.
If you're looking to talk with other listeners about a case we've covered, you can join the Murder Sheet discussion group on Facebook. We mostly focus our time on research and reporting, so we're not on social media much. We do try to check our email account, but we ask for patience as we often receive a lot of messages. Thanks again for listening.